Tonight, reaction from the younger generation as the Pope wraps up his visit to Canada. Also, police forces of all levels across the province are struggling with recruitment. Plus, you may not have noticed it here, but there is a worldwide shortage of mustard, and Saskatchewan is partly to blame.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, July 29th, game day in Saskatchewan, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Pope Francis arrived in Iqaluit for the final stop on his historic tour today. He met with Inuit survivors of residential schools and their families and took part in a cultural event before his scheduled flight back to Rome. He was in Quebec City earlier today, where he met with the regional chief of the Assembly of First Nations for Quebec-Labrador. His 6-day trip to Canada started in Alberta, where he delivered an apology over abuses committed in residential schools by some members of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, survivors have been offering their insights on the papal apology to residential school survivors this week. But the apology impacts another generation too, the young people who came after them but did not attend the schools. They say the Pope's words were important to hear, but the actions that will come later are more important. Brian Enius has more.
Survivors have long spoken about the intergenerational traumas created by residential schools. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission identified numerous long-term issues the institutions created. Now, intergenerational survivors, those who had family that attended the institutions but didn't go themselves, say the church needs to right those wrongs. They're calling for well-rounded support services provided by the church to correct the intergenerational traumas.
By bringing those services out, that would be a first step, because a lot of the addictions that our people go through is because of these residential schools, these churches. It's basically where it all stems from, is from these churches.
Thomas says it's been an emotional week for her and her family. She says the Pope's apology amounts to nothing more than just words without meaningful actions from the church to repair the damages it's caused over generations. Other intergenerational survivors feel the same way. They say the Pope's apology failed to fully encompass the true atrocities that occurred in Canada's residential school system.
It can be harmful to really list out the details of what happened, but if you're not willing to use those words yourself and stand next to your apology for a specific situation, you just checked the box.
On Thursday, after CBC spoke with Alexin, the Pope finally did include one detail he'd previously left out of his apology. Pope Francis said the sexual abuse committed against minors and vulnerable people were crimes that required firm action and irreversible commitment. Alexin says her father didn't make the trip to Maquachese, Alberta to hear the Pope speak, though she says he felt getting that chance may have let him let go of some of his anger about his experiences at residential schools. Alexin and Thomas's position did make sense to one other intergenerational survivor. Haley Rose is a Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations youth representative, though she says the apology for the actions of Christians that supported the assimilation of Indigenous peoples and created the residential school system gave her a glimmer of hope that some survivors could get some closure. Rose says that more support is needed. She called for programs and initiatives that would support youth breaking through barriers and help them get over the intergenerational traumas caused by residential schools. Brian Enius, CBC News, Regina.
Support is available for anyone affected by residential schools. You can call the 24-hour National Crisis Line for referral services. The number is 1-866-925-4419. Our province may be on track to have the same or even more drug overdose deaths than last year. That's in the latest Saskatchewan Coroner's Report. As of July 4th, the number of deaths in our province is more than half of last year's total. According to the report, there were 204 suspected and 47 confirmed fatal overdoses for a total of 251. Last year, overall, there were 424. Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon is home to the only safe consumption site in Saskatchewan. The executive director says these numbers show there are not strong enough resources available for those who use substances.
Where the province is consistently missing is, one, we do not have a provincial strategy that has been rolled out to address substance use disorder or the overdose crisis that we're currently in. We need plans that involve a whole spectrum of services, right from safe consumption sites and safe supply for people who are still actively using.
Demong says there has been a continued increase of monthly visits to the site since it opened. She says this year has been no different, with no signs of slowing down. Police services are having a tough time finding new recruits to serve and protect in Saskatchewan. Earlier this week, a report was released showing public perception of the Regina Police Service has dropped for the first time in 15 years. It's largely attributed to a global decrease in police perception after the murder of George Floyd in the United States and the anti-police protests that followed. Regina's police chief says services across Canada are facing recruitment challenges as well.
That has an effect on recruiting. Right now, policing doesn't seem like an attractive occupation to get into. There's lots of scrutiny, there's some long hours, there's some challenges with workload, all of those things. And so it just isn't something that we've got a bunch of people knocking on the door to do.
The RCMP is dealing with the same issues in Saskatchewan. Assistant Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore says the Mounties have made diverse communities a focus in recruitment efforts, and they provide extra support for Indigenous applicants. Blackmore hopes these applicants can be of service closer to home in their home communities in the future.
As First Nation communities look towards self-administered policing possibly in the future, it would be very beneficial for them as well to have Indigenous applicants who are already experienced, rather than trying to establish a police force with all new members.
Both agree that officers engaging with people in their respective communities will help shift policing perceptions. They're also hopeful that the effort, combined with ongoing outreach programs, will drive future recruitment. Well, it is official. We will be paying more for electricity in Saskatchewan starting this fall. The Saskatchewan Party Cabinet has accepted the rate review panel's recommendation to raise rates. As a result, your Sask power bill is expected to jump by about $5 a month for most customers as of September. And you can expect another $5 increase in April. The prices are connected to the rising cost of natural gas. Almost half of the province's electricity is generated through natural gas. As we go into a long weekend, if you're heading to a barbecue, there's a good chance there will be mustard on the table. It's not a big thing in Canada, but people love it in Europe. And that's why there's a commotion over an ongoing mustard shortage. Alexander Kwan has the details.
Saskatchewan is a big player in the mustard market. Farmers in this province account for about 80% of the nation's mustard crop. Internationally speaking, Canada is actually one of the world's largest producers, and that's why a bad 2021 growing season is having a big impact.
So normally we like to have about 500,000 acres of mustard seeded each year in Western Canada, and the last 2 years we were running about 300,000. So we were off the mark a little bit. We'd have probably been okay had we not had the drought last year. So then when you throw a drought on top of it, all of a sudden you've got a pretty major supply issue.
Farmers on the Canadian prairies were forced to feel the heat from last year's drought, hitting them right in the wallet.
The yields were cut in less than half. So the farmers' revenue, obviously, with that much less crop to sell, would have been cut as well.
One expert says North American consumers are unlikely to feel the effect of 2021, and he says if they do, it won't be until much later. But people on this continent don't consume mustard the way people in other parts of the world do.
The reality in Canada is that we are a huge exporter of mustard seeds, but we process very little of it. We buy mustard seeds back in a bottle 20 times the price.
People in France consume nearly a kilogram of mustard each year. That's per person. That makes them the largest consumers in the world. As a result, people in France have been feeling the effects of the supply crunch for a while now. That said, this year's crop in Saskatchewan and Alberta looks to be in much better shape. However, the world will need to wait until that's harvested to get their fix for the condiment. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders are hoping to stop their losing streak at home tonight. After back-to-back losses to the Argos, the Riders begin their Western Challenge against BC. The 4-3 Riders will host the 4-1 Lions at Mosaic Stadium. Starting quarterback Cody Fajardo is back in the lineup tonight. His knee is feeling better, and his energy has returned after his bout with COVID. Fajardo will be behind a new center tonight. Regina Thunder product Logan Furland will be snapping the ball for the first time this season.
Having this change, it was made early in the week, so we were able to get full practices with that, and it's not like it's a last-second change. So I know he has the center capabilities, and he's been Dan's right-hand man through it all, and Dan's done a great job of mentoring him.
He's snapping the ball better than he did last year, knock on wood. Hopefully it holds up. And he's just more confident. You can see he's a more confident player. He's been in the system for a couple years. He's kind of grown up before our eyes, and he's one of our leaders on that offensive line now.
I think there's excitement because, and by excitement, the only way you can catch teams in the West is by playing teams in the West. And so that's what we're excited about, the opportunity to play one of the hottest teams in the CFL right now and kind of stack ourselves up. It's not a must-win game because it's still early in the season, but it is one of those games that can set you off in the right path.
The Riders will have a well-deserved bye week after tonight's game. At the stadium, it's Country Roots Night with a halftime performance from Jess Moskaluk. Kickoff tonight is at 7 o'clock. An impressive demonstration of athleticism is on display in Regina this weekend. The 47th annual Canadian Masters Athletics Championships are being held at Douglas Park. Athletes must be over 35 years old to compete, but there's no age limit beyond that. So there are many people hoping to set personal bests or even break records. The event runs right through Sunday. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. Placing a bird bath in your backyard is a great way to attract some fine feathered friends, but not all bird baths are created equal, and the cost can add up quickly. Bird enthusiast Melissa Penny has some top tips for creating the right bird bath for your garden.
Hi, I'm Melissa Penny, and I'm a bird enthusiast. Last year in my Edmonton yard, I had 72 species of birds stop by, and almost every single one of those visited my bird baths. What you have to remember is that birds are not going to buy their own bird baths. So what you see in the store is often marketed towards people, and it's definitely, a lot of the time, not what birds would choose if they had the choice. What you're looking for in a bird bath is something that's shallow and grippy. Now, the biggest thing about putting water in a container is the temptation that you have to fill it up all the way. But resist that temptation because the birds would rather have a puddle than a swimming pool. Next, you're going to have to make it really attractive for birds, and that's by making it look as close to nature as possible. So by adding things like twigs in the water and something like a flat rock that they can land on to investigate will give them an excellent idea of how deep this bird bath is. After the thousands of bird baths I've seen, one thing is clear, that birds prefer to perch on a stick while they're drinking. So by putting these items in, you're opening up your bird bath to a whole huge amount of species that never would have looked at it otherwise. Birds love moving water. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can get a little battery-powered water wiggler that's going to make beautiful ripples in the water. You can use a solar fountain, or you can get a bird bath pump to make the water bubble. The big advantage with this is that birds who have never been to your yard before are going to hear the water and come from really far away to your yard. Water is so important for birds. Their feathers need to be kept clean to work better. The official way to clean a bird bath and bird feeders is using a solution of 1 part bleach and 9 parts water. You would scrub the bird bath completely, rinse it very well, also, especially the undersides of these rocks. Bird baths and their accessories can cost a fortune. So this is the most inexpensive way you can have a safe bird bath in your yard. It's simply a terracotta saucer meant for a plant pot. I've put one flat rock so that they can land directly on it, and I've used a rounder rock to hold the twigs in place so that if a bird does land on them, that they don't move. This is an extremely easy bird bath to fit into any size yard. So there's definitely one that will fit in your backyard.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. The exclusive export event is back.
And weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. It might be tempting to cool off in a bird bath this weekend.
Yes, but this forecast is nothing to get your feathers in a flap about, Sam. I have not cheaped out on producing this forecast. In fact, it is so hot you might need to tweet about it. Okay, I'm done. I promise. That's it. Anyway, a very busy, active night on the watch and warning map. Heat warnings in the west central part of the province. Those are likely going to be dropping off as temperatures drop. Severe thunderstorm watches in place for Prince Albert over toward Hudson Bay, and air quality statements now for the Pelican Narrows and Cumberland House region as some forest fire smoke from Manitoba starts to waft its way over. Now, here's that severe thunderstorm warning. It's in effect for Nipawin, and this is moving off to the southeast at about 30 kilometers an hour toward Arborfield. Some strong winds, nickel-sized hail, heavy rain. You can't quite see it. The radar actually just cuts off right around Nipawin, but it is now moving into the community and continue moving southeastward. Now, we have had some heat warnings quite a bit this summer, and just in case you're wondering, we do have criteria in case you're wondering why you might not be under one right now. For southern Saskatchewan, which is in the pink there, Regina, Saskatoon, our highs have to be at or above 32 and our overnight lows above 16 degrees or humidex levels above 38 for 2 or more consecutive days. For northern Saskatchewan, the criteria is a little bit lower by about a degree or two. So for Lloydminster, Prince Albert, Nipawin, Tisdale, kind of northward, it is different than the southern part of the province. Now, tonight we are expecting possibly severe thunderstorms in the central part of the province. Tomorrow, a cold front has moved through. That drops temperatures, especially in the the central and Churchill region of the province. And we could be seeing some heavier showers in that region as well as that moves through. But the south and the far north, I think, will stay mostly dry. Maybe a chance of showers in the south. Keep in mind, this is through the entire weekend, and some of these amounts could be higher because of thunderstorms, but between 10 and 20 millimeters possible along the western side of the northern half of the province. And in the south and central region, again, that central region likely seeing the highest amounts. Again, Yorkton, 30 millimeters might be a little high, but we are expecting to see some thunderstorms in there, which could bump up those amounts. Regina, a very hot weekend as expected, especially tomorrow. And then our temperatures drop off a little bit on Sunday, but for the holiday Monday, we get a bit of a rebound and temperatures back to normal as we head into the beginning of next week. Saskatoon, a drastic temperature change tomorrow compared to today. That's about a 10-degree daytime high temperature drop and some thunderstorms possible as well with some accumulation there. But it's not an entire washout through the weekend in Saskatoon, as we will see temperatures start to bump back up as we head through the rest of the weekend and into the holiday Monday, and actually not too bad of a week ahead. Now, if you're headed to Mosaic Stadium this evening, BC Lions taking on the Riders at Mosaic at 7 o'clock. And kickoff looking quite nice. Sunny, 26 degrees, and the winds won't be too bad as well, so it'll be a nice sunny evening. And for those who don't like it too hot, Sam, there will be some wind gusts to cool you off too.
I've spent the last 3 minutes trying to come up with a bird pun, and I've got nothing.
Champion right here.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Well, if you love boats but can't handle waves, check this out. Jacob Boy is a former lobster boat turned camper. It now resides on a campground in southeastern New Brunswick. Inside you'll find a full bathroom, bedroom, and kitchenette. And for those interested in a unique camping experience, Jacob Boy is currently listed at $248 per night. We'll be back after the break. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that refusing to wear a condom during intercourse may be grounds for sexual assault. The decision could change how the courts look at sex and consent. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
It goes by the slang term stealthing. It's when someone agrees to wear a condom during intercourse, but in the act, they remove it, sometimes without the other person even knowing.
When it happened to me, I was in shock.
Anna DeBella says it happened to her last spring.
I had never heard of it, and I just could never comprehend that someone would ever do that.
Her civil and criminal cases against the man both on hold, while the Supreme Court ruled on this separate case.
It's a horrible process, and all of this has been pending this decision. So a lot of relief.
In its decision, Canada's Supreme Court judges all agree stealthing could be grounds for sexual assault. The majority also say just because someone agrees to have sex with a condom, it does not mean they've also consented to sex without one. They say condom use is part of the act of having sex. Writing it not only affirms that individuals have the right to determine who touches their bodies and how, it situates condom use at the definitional core of consent, where it belongs. This case began in 2017 in BC. A man named Ross Mackenzie Kirkpatrick and a woman met online. They agreed to have sex. She demanded he use a condom. He did the first time. The second time, she says she thought he reached for one on the bedside table, but he didn't. She later went to police. He was initially acquitted.
Mr. Kirkpatrick at no point in time tried to deceive the complainant that he was wearing a condom.
But now the Supreme Court has unanimously agreed to order a new trial. The decision could change how many people come forward to report the act.
There's been such a lack of clarity in our law on this question that people don't know whether or not it constitutes sexual assault and are therefore less likely to report it to the police.
Anna DeBella says she spent weeks convincing RCMP to investigate. She hopes this decision means other survivors will come forward.
I was told over and over again by the police that this wasn't a crime. And I'm so thankful that I was persistent.
A recent survey of around 600 Canadian undergraduate students found 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men say they have been victims of stealthing. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's economy stayed essentially unchanged in May. Some are seeing that as a better outcome than the contraction economists were expecting. Statistics Canada says the real GDP stayed flat in May after a 3-point expansion in April. The slight uptick in the service sector was offset by a decline in goods-producing industries. Along with supply issues and rising interest rates, a lot of businesses are also facing labor shortages. Canada fared better during the same period than the United States, which saw its economy shrink for 2 quarters in a row, an informal indicator of a recession. And Ethan is back with one last look at tonight's weather, one to give a hoot about.
Oh, good one. Look at you go. Well, after days of sunshine in Regina, you might be beaking about the cloud cover that's moving in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We'll be at 19 degrees. Southeast winds picking up a little bit. By the time we get to noon, we'll be close to 30 degrees. Sun and cloud sticks around and winds don't go anywhere. Now, if you're headed out to the Qu'Appelle Lakes for your long weekend, we could see some showers tomorrow. 40% chance for each day, but some nice average or above average temperatures, especially tomorrow. In Saskatoon, we'll see cloud cover start to build in the morning, and by the afternoon, those winds will pick up. We will also see some showers and possibly thunderstorms in the afternoon. And if you're headed out to Waskesiu, some unfortunate news. It looks like it's going to be quite cool and quite rainy, especially tomorrow for you. But Sam, I have a feeling those birds are going to be happy. Their bird baths will be full with water.
Come for the news, stay for the bird puns. Thanks,
right.
Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it for us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to our website or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan will be back with more local news, rider highlights, and local weather tonight at 11. Thank you so much for watching. We're back Tuesday at 6. Have a great long weekend.